Hi, welcome to Tonai Talks. My name's Dr. Caris Rees. I'm a senior specialist educational psychologist working in Neath Port Talbot. And today we're going to be talking about young carers. I'm very lucky to be joined here with Dan Doherty and Taylor Margetson from the Young Carers Project in Neath Port Talbot. For those of you watching on YouTube, don't forget there's the QR code on our screen. As you can see there, you can scan it to gain access to our live sessions where parents from Neath Port Talbot listen live and can also ask questions which we'll answer at the end of each session. So don't forget to have a look at our up and coming Tonai Talks. But for today, I'd like to welcome Dan and Taylor. Thank you, Dan and Taylor, for coming in today to talk about young carers. I was just wondering, before we get into it, just if you could tell me a little bit about yourselves and, what experience you have of young carers and how long you've been doing it and things like that.
So I've worked with young people for a long time, but I've only worked with young carers for the last 3 years, coming up to now in September.
Okay.
I don't have experience of care myself, but quickly learned how big a project it is and how big an issue it is across the county, really. And young people looking for support. It was way bigger project than I expected. So as I say, I haven't got first-hand experience of caring, but I've got experience working with young people, and for the last 3 years now, I've supported young carers.
Wow. Okay. So you've been running the Young Carers Project in Neath Port Talbot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So working at schools, raising awareness about young carers, but also delivering the young carers group support then as well.
Okay. So how many young carers are you currently supporting in Neath Port Talbot?
I think we're just about 100 or 100-ish. So our group was weekly. We've had to move it to fortnightly just so we could fit that amount of people into our venue. We couldn't fit 100 in all in one go. So we've kind of split it by location. We transport the young people to our group based on their location. So it's fortnightly group now.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So there's 100 young carers currently in Neath Port Talbot. Do you think there's more than that?
Definitely, yeah. That's just the ones that we know about. Yeah, I mean, when I run the awareness raising sessions in schools, I probably find 2 per classroom easily, on average. Yeah, so there's definitely more out there. It's just whether or not they feel confident to speak up and come forward for support, I suppose.
Yeah. And are you finding then doing those sort of awareness raising sessions in schools that even the teachers aren't aware that those children could be young carers?
Yeah, definitely. So there's some staff maybe who have experience of caring themselves, who know a little bit about young carers or have a care experience themselves, whereas others are learning just the same as the young people. They may find out that there's young carers in their school that they've worked with for the last 2 or 3 years maybe, and they had no idea that they had caring responsibilities. So it's that definitely does happen. Yeah.
God, so it's really key that you go and do these sessions in schools so people become more aware of it.
Yeah. So I deliver them for the young people, but I also do sessions for staff, professionals, anyone who works with young people, basically, just so that they're aware and they can kind of look for signs of maybe caring responsibilities at home.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay. And Taylor, how long have you been involved in the Young Carers Project?
So I've been involved in the Young Carers Project now for around a year.
Okay.
Excuse me. So my role was specifically developed to work with the young adult carers. Okay. So we noticed that there was a drop off in the young carers group from around 16. So I was brought in to identify anyone who had stopped engaging, who was between the ages of 16 and 25, and engage them in the support. I also identify any young carers in colleges, work closely with the college to get a package of support for the young carers. So my group specifically looks more at employability, volunteering opportunities, and further education, and kind of those transition skills that they need to go into adulthood as a young carer. We also have a fortnightly group just for the 16 to 25-year-olds, and where they can just come and meet new people, and quite often they bump into people that they see in college quite a lot, and obviously they don't know that they're both young carers.
And that's nice for them to be able to make those links, isn't it?
Definitely.
Have you ever experienced care responsibilities?
So I temporarily became a carer quite suddenly. My grandmother fell ill, and she was caring for my grandpa, which we didn't know about. It was very secretive until she fell ill. So I then kind of overnight became a full-time carer for my grandpa, until a package of care was able to be put in place. So it can really happen.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow it could be a prolonged process, or it could be that you're a young carer for a small amount of time. It differs for everyone, really.
Wow, okay. So thank you for sharing that, because it's important that the reason we're doing this Tonight Talk today is to help raise awareness. And obviously you talked about your own personal experience there of becoming, a young carer at, very suddenly, but also that maybe you as a family weren't aware of those caring responsibilities. And that's quite common, isn't it, for our young carers and our families, is that they kind of learn to sort of get by, don't they, with those caring responsibilities without realizing the massive impact that it does have on families. So I think that's so important that your project is here to support not only the sort of younger young carers, but also the young adult carers, especially for those to be able to have that opportunity to go to college, and to be able to, get, good work experiences and, good, outcomes for later in life. And I think that's, key here. So before we talk some more, I was just wondering if really we want to know, what is a young carer then? We've talked a little bit about, it being short term, but also you talked about the different age ranges. Can you explain to us what would be a young carer?
So the official definition would be a young person who has care and responsibilities at home. When I deliver the sessions at school, that's the first thing I open with. What is a young carer? I try and get ideas of the young people of what they think it might be.
Yeah. Are they right?
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Yeah, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's someone who's young and someone who has care and responsibilities. But it could be, as Taylor said, it could be for any number of reasons, and it could happen overnight. So it could be because of an illness. It's just somebody that you're living with, that you're providing some sort of support for. It could be emotional support. Maybe it's more physical support, or both.
Yeah.
It could be illness, physical or mental disability. Someone needs a lot of extra support for whatever reason. But yeah, there's lots of different reasons why you could become a young carer.
Okay, so it's any child up to the age of 18 is classed as a young carer who could be doing any kind of tasks for someone that lives at home. So it could be like for you, Taylor, you looked after a grandfather, but it could be someone like a younger sibling.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it could be anybody that you live with that you're providing support for. Yeah, and we support young people from age 5 up to 18.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you got 5-year-olds in these?
We do. Yeah, we do. We've got 1 or 2 5-year-olds. We've got a few 6 and 7-year-olds. And then moving upwards, and we have lots of 12, 13, 14-year-olds most of the time. That's the sort of average age that we get. But it does happen in Neath Talbot with people as young as 5. Especially since COVID, we've got a lot of parents who are struggling with depression or anxiety and things like that, and lots of the young people are stepping in and doing more at home because their parent isn't able to leave the house or leave their bed for the day and that kind of thing. So it definitely does happen.
Gosh, there's a lot there that the children are responsible for then at home, isn't it? Because even if they're looking after a parent because of the parent's illness, they could actually then look after the younger siblings as well.
Yeah.
So that caring role is not just for the person who's ill or needs the support, but it's also for, younger siblings that aren't able to care for themselves.
Yeah.
Gosh, and to think of a 5-year-old doing jobs, I think there's a lot of stigma sometimes with families that they're worried about the children, especially as young as 5, having caring responsibilities, and the effect that can have on them. And it's a big thing for families to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the parents feel guilt as well, don't they? The parents feel guilt that they should be looking after the young person, and they feel guilty that the young person is having to step in and do all these things around the house. So it just kind of adds to the kind of pressure at home, I suppose.
Yeah. I also find that people are quite scared to come forward to us because sometimes they may think that their caring responsibilities mean that they can't remain at home, or that something is going to happen, but that's not the case. We're there to kind of look at what's going on, see what the barriers are, and then try and work with the family to make that better for them, rather than
Yes, we're there to help the families and support them, isn't it? And like when they're referred through to our service, someone from the children and families team will go out and do an assessment, and it's called an assessment, and straight away that word causes a bit of panic, and they think, right, someone's coming to the house to assess us, our job as parents, what the young person is doing, but it's not the case. It's literally a person who comes out to meet the family, find out what's being done by the young person at home, and help them, support them, try and remove barriers, and make it easier for everybody. It's not. It kind of comes across a bit negative when you say the word assessment to them, but it's purely not to assess their role as a parent or their ability to parent or what the young person does at home. Is just to see what's happening in the home situation.
Yeah, because I meet a lot of families and they're worried about the social services and ultimately the biggest fear is having your children taken away. But social services work so hard to keep families together. And understandably these are circumstances that is beyond their capacity. It's not it's not based on a parental capacity. It's the fact that they aren't able, to be, disabled or ill. That's not something that they're choosing to do. And it's not that they're not prioritizing the children, but they are significantly, impacted by those illnesses or the disabilities. And I know, Taylor, you mentioned about, your grandfather, that you became a young carer, like, suddenly, and actually you would have gone through that assessment process, wouldn't you, to find out the right package of support. And I'm wondering now, has that helped and changed the situation for your family?
It definitely has, yeah. At the time, I had to take time off work very quickly. I was off work for a prolonged period of time because I couldn't work and manage my care responsibility at the same time. But once we had the assessment, they assessed my grandpa's needs, they assessed our needs as a family as well and as carers. Luckily, I was a joint carer with my father, so we were able to share those responsibilities, but some people aren't. And yeah, they've managed to put a package of care in now for my grandpa so that me and my dad are able to return to work. And kind of what we missed out on was being able to go and visit my grandpa as a grandpa. The relationship kind of changed. And
that dynamic, isn't it?
The dynamic between me and my grandpa. Whereas now, when I go and see him, it's nice to go out, or he doesn't see me; he sees me as his granddaughter now, not as someone coming in to give him food or to help him wash. So it's definitely helped us, and it's helped our relationship as a family as well.
Gosh, oh, that's lovely. And then now you're able to come back to work and help others as well in similar situations. We talked about what a young carer is and someone that has care and responsibilities. What's not a young carer then?
Quite often when I'm doing the sessions at schools, maybe a young person will think that they're a young carer because they've misunderstood the session and think that because they do the washing up or maybe they do some chores and things like that around the house that they're a young carer. Obviously that's not the case. So the young carers that we support are in the situations they're in because nobody else is there to do those tasks and they have to step in to do them. If you're a young person who's just, putting the bins out once a week, taking the dog for a walk, doing the little things around the house, but other people are able to do around the house, then you're not considered a young carer. That's quite a common one that I come across when working in schools.
And I guess, and also anyone with an illness or disability doesn't necessarily need care, a carer either, so there's a lot of people out there that do suffer with, an illness or disability, but they can still maintain that care for themselves. So I think, definitely. That's another part of it, isn't it?
Absolutely,
Another common one we see is, it's quite a common family dynamic to look after your siblings if your parents are late from work or, occasionally if their parents are out. But if there is someone who is able to look after them, then that wouldn't be considered a young carer, just like the chores. It's if they're looking after their siblings because the parent has a disability or an illness or an injury that they would not be able to look after the siblings.
And paid work as well. I get asked that quite often as well. My sister's a carer, and then I'll delve a little bit deeper, and it's just their job. So they're paid to go and care for somebody. So that's another misconception. It's somebody who's living at home with somebody that they're looking after without being paid to do so. They're looking after somebody that they live with.
Gosh, right, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So with regards to young carers, what would be the telltale signs that you're a young carer? Because we were saying about how many young carers don't realise they're a young carer, but also, you know, we're saying about teachers not realising either. And your job, a lot of your work is to raise awareness, isn't it? So how would we know if we are a young carer as a child who's listening to this now, or if we are a parent that's listening?
I think the kind of telltale signs normally are, possibly issues with attendance at school, homework and coursework being missed, things like that. So a young person maybe who feels a bit more isolated, they're not themselves, they're a bit more isolated at school. So again, looking at it from a school perspective, maybe a teacher would notice that a young person hasn't done any coursework for a little while, their attendance has been poor, maybe something's happened at home. I think a big problem is communication. So a lot of young people maybe aren't confident to communicate with staff members at their school. So again, that's something I try and build on when I do my sessions in schools, is trying to get the young people to talk to staff members.
Okay.
They are there to help you. But if a teacher doesn't understand that you need to make a phone call at break time to check on a parent or maybe find out something that's going on at home, then they might just think you're using your phone. They might think, oh, they're just on Snapchat, they're playing a game, they're doing something in class they shouldn't be, whereas they could actually be texting home to find out if everything's okay, check with their mum that they've gone to their appointment, that kind of thing. But I think, the telltale signs normally are things like a young person being late for school, missing coursework or homework, things like that. They could be dropping their brother or sister off to school and then walking themselves, and that's going to make them late. Those are the kind of short-term impacts that you'd see, but then obviously they have more serious long-term impacts. So if a young person is 14, 15 years old, they're late for school, they're not doing their homework or their coursework, it's going to impact their GCSEs, which then impacts college, employment, that kind of thing. So there are short-term things to look out for that can lead on to more serious long-term impacts then as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, isn't it? Because I think a lot of, like you're saying, young carers, they don't know they're a young carer. But also we talked about just recently about the stigma for families worried about, if they've got care and responsibilities, that could impact them in terms of having an assessment from, children's services and things like that. So it's really important your awareness raising sessions, isn't it, to raise that awareness and to try and reduce that stigma, but also raise that support within school, because as much as your sessions that you do fortnightly are such a valuable sort of respite for our young carers and opportunities to make connections and to have support. Ultimately, it's those day-to-day interactions with school staff that can really change for the better for them if they have that understanding.
Definitely, and I try to get a young carers champion in every school. So most schools across Neath Talbot now, comprehensive schools, have got a young carers champion.
And what is that then?
So it could be somebody like a wellbeing officer who also does things like the young carers work in the school, and it's a point of contact for me when I contact the school, but a point of contact for the young people as well. So it's a designated person that the young carers in that school can go to. They sometimes run lunchtime clubs or after school clubs, like little meetups for the young carers to come to. So it's just additional support to what we offer. It's just a designated person that young people can go to if they want to talk about anything, or if they're struggling with anything, and they can make adjustments for them, like that example with the phone. So like if a young person needs to phone home every day, maybe they'll say, right, come to the Young Carers Champions classroom at break time, you can make that call every day. So it's making adjustments to help young people, basically.
And that'll really help reduce their feelings of like worry and stress, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what if we've got a young person who's listening right now? How would they know who the Young Carers Champion is in school?
So most schools across Neath Talbot, whenever I deliver the Young Carers sessions, I'll make them aware who the Young Carers Champion is, but all staff should be aware as well. So if they ask a member of staff at their school who their Young Carers Champion is, that they'll know who that would be.
Okay, so if we've got a young person in school that maybe thinks that they could be a young carer for whatever reason, they can go and speak to the Young Carers Champion.
Yeah, definitely. And if they're unsure of who the Young Carers Champion is, or they don't want to do that, they can contact the youth service directly. We can pop into school, or I can give them the information myself as well. But yeah, anybody at the school should be able to tell them who that person is.
Okay, great. So we talked a little bit about, the impact in school, maybe turning up to school late, being a bit more stressed, and anxious in school, worried. What do you think is the impact of being a young carer on our young people?
I think, the impact is different for everyone, really, depending on their care and responsibilities and who they're caring for. I think the social impact is massive, because quite a lot of the time they're worried that they need to be home, or if they do go out with their friends, they're leaving early or they're getting there late, or they just can't go at all. So they feel quite isolated a lot of the time.
And we know
quite
that's so
different.
important for our kids, isn't it? That those social opportunities are key, isn't it? You know, and to feel worried that you can't go out to see your friends and have those social opportunities, or needing to be in an area where you've got signal in case, you know, a phone call comes through. I think, you're right, that has a huge impact on their development as well, you know, throughout childhood.
Yeah, and if you're going out with your friends and you're distracted, you're not really spending quality time there. So yeah, it can be very worrying for the young carers to even go out and try and have fun.
Yeah, and we've had instances where young people just can't. So like, say for example, you're a 9 or 10, 11-year-old, you can't be left at home on your own. And if you've got a brother with a disability or a sister with a disability, for example, they've got to go to appointments all the time.
Yeah.
The parents are going to have to take you with them as well. So if all your friends are off down the park, or they're going football training, netball, hockey, whatever it may be, you may not be able to go because you've just got to go to these appointments as well. So so that's quite one that we've come across before.
Yeah. And another one that I found working with the young adult carers is things like going to university, going to college. There's some barriers in place about, you know, what university you can go to, because they don't want to go too far from home. So they're missing out on those opportunities for further education and to make new friends and have new experiences that their peers would be able to have. Because they need to be at home caring for the person they're caring for.
And often they'll come home every weekend, won't they? So they miss those opportunities on the weekends with their you know, university friends as well, you know.
It reduces their break then, doesn't it? So they're in university all week and then they come home and they're caring for a weekend. So you know, it's really difficult in that sense, that there isn't much of a break.
So what do you think, you know, we're talking about parents who have young carers, and maybe like you're talking about you know, parents having to take, you know, maybe a sibling to hospital appointments and then having to take the other children as well. So they're missing out on their opportunities. We mentioned about the stigma that parents have. You know, what do you think the parents of young carers might experience?
I think a lot of the parents of our young carers feel guilty, mostly, because they know that their children are missing out on opportunities, but there's nothing that they can do to kind of prevent that because of the care that they need. I feel like there's quite a lot of stigma around you know, having a young person caring for the parent when they feel like it should be the other way around, and they get a bit stuck.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the main one. I think they do feel guilty, definitely, and it's understandable. But I think they are also really grateful. You know, the support that we offer gives that young person a break. So I think they're just really grateful to see that, okay, they've had to care for their parent for the week, but then on a Monday evening, when we're providing the group support, they come in to our group and being able to be a young person, they're able to have the experiences that others are getting. And like, we do trips in the summer holidays, for example, we do camping and we do like theme parks, things like that. So they'll put things in place to make sure that the young person can go and enjoy themselves for that day or that weekend and then come back. But they do feel guilty, definitely, that that is kind of the other way around.
And that sounds like, you know, not only are they dealing with that guilt, doesn't it, but they're also dealing with, you know, illness and disability or injury at home. You know, so it's hugely impacting on the family as a whole, isn't it? You know? And I'm just wondering, like, how can adults support young carers? How can professionals and maybe neighbours and things like that, or for other family members, support young carers?
So I think it's it depends on the setting, I suppose. So like, professionals working with young people, if they spot the signs that a young person is a young carer, then maybe signpost them to support, refer them through to the youth service, or maybe just have that empathy and understanding with the young person. Maybe professionals and people who work with young people could contact the youth service and have sessions themselves. You know, if a person is feeling that they don't know much about young carers, then we can go and deliver a session to adults and professionals as well. So it just kind of raises awareness with them as well, and they kind of know what to look for. But I think just having empathy and understanding with young people is the main thing. And signposting them to support, I think.
And how would you go about, so say, for example, if I was working in a school and I met a young person I thought that could be a young carer, how would I go about signposting them to yourselves?
You can either refer them direct to the youth service and we can talk them through the referral process.
Yeah.
The referral process is done through the single point of contact team for Neath Talbot. The benefits of doing it that way, like I say about having an assessment, when a family or children's worker visits the family, they could not only identify young carer support, but maybe other needs that the family needs as well. And signpost them or refer them through for other support. So it's not just young carer support that can be done when referred, but that would be the process, is refer them either directly to the youth service or through the single point of contact team. And then we kind of take over from there then. So we'll contact the family, explain our service, explain the support, meet the family, meet the young person, and we can begin support straight away then.
Okay. So say, for example, we've got someone listening now who may know a young carer who may think they might be a young carer in their family or their wider family network or, family friend, whatever. How would they get in touch with you?
You can just search up the youth service. You can find us online. You can email us directly. I can put all of the links on the bottom, so you could contact us directly, and the link for the single point of contact team will be on there as well.
So they can refer themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they have to know that they're a young carer, or could it just be that they think they could be, or they could have a young carer in their family, and they can refer through the single point of access?
Yeah, they could contact them, or they could contact us, and we can have a chat with them. We can discuss what their care and responsibilities are, what their needs are. They can maybe talk with school staff. If they know who the Young Carers Champion is in their school, maybe they could speak to them, get information about it. We've got lots of resources that I always give to schools. I've got information booklets, flyers, and things like that I hand to the schools, so schools can give them some resources as well. They can kind of take home, have a chat about it, and if they want to be referred, then we have to have the family's consent if they're to be referred. But yeah, that would be the process.
Okay, that's great. So there's a few avenues. They're contacting you guys directly, going through the single point of access, which you said is probably better just in case there's additional needs within the family that could be supported. But also through that Young Carers Champion in school as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We are also, for the young adult carers, we're also trialling at the moment. There's a QR code which I've sent across. So if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to an MS form, so you can fill in your details, and then I can give them a call back then to give them some information. It might be that as well that they don't know whether they are a young carer or that they know they're a young carer and they'd like support. I can talk them through the options then about what's available, whether that's through the youth service, if there's any support that the college could give. So it's a bit easier going through the QR code if there's 16 to 25, and then I can advise them where the best place is to go for advice then.
Oh, great. So that's wonderful. So what support is out there then? Once someone has made this referral or the request through the QR code, what kind of support do you provide young carers in Neath Talbot and young adult carers?
So depending on their circumstances, they could need a carers assessment. Everyone has a right to a carers assessment to fully assess what their care role is and what support would be best for them.
What's involved in that carers assessment then? What can be expected?
So with a carers assessment, a social worker will come and visit and run through what the young person wants, needs, what their education goals are, what their social goals are, and see how their caring role then impacts meeting their goals, so that they can put some support in place to kind of reduce those barriers. And that may be through the young adult carers support, young carer support if they're under 18. There's also support through the schools. The college puts a lot of stuff in place. So if they identify a young carer, we work closely with the college. They can put bus passes in place to make transport easier. They provide wellbeing support as well. So they work quite closely with us, so we can work in conjunction with each other. And then there's also adult carer services then for you know, the young adult carers who are aged 18 to 25, they can access both ours and the adult carer service at the same time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So just for example, if, you know, if a young adult carer is in college, but struggling to meet deadlines, struggling to do the work and things, are you able to help them with talking to college, or, you know, getting some extra support?
Yeah, definitely. So if someone is struggling in college and they maybe don't feel comfortable going to the wellbeing team, they can scan the QR code, speak to me, we can talk about what's going on, and then I can then put them in touch with someone in the wellbeing team who could help them with things like if they're missing school, they can talk to the lecturers. I think it's quite difficult to initiate those conversations when you don't know who the best person is to go to. So that's why we're trying the QR code, so that there's a point of contact.
There's someone there, that's great.
You can arrange that for them then.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of our role, is building those relationships with schools, colleges and things like that, but also with the young people as well. So where, you know, a young person has got that relationship with us, they trust us, they're confident with us, then they can talk to us and we can be that kind of go-between between the, you know, the school and the college and things like that. So it just makes it easier for that young person. It's not as daunting to talk to somebody about it. Whereas we could say, right, what you've told me, I can pass on to the young carers champion at your school, and they can put something in place for you, rather than having to go and see, repeat it through school, with somebody that maybe they don't know as well, or somebody they don't have that relationship with.
And you kind of advocate for these young carers and young adults, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big part of our role.
Yeah, and that's wonderful for them to have that. We mentioned about how they can access that support. What kind of other support do you provide to young carers?
So we offer group support. We also offer one-to-one support. So if a young person is not confident to visit a group and things like that, then we can visit them in school. We can take them out of lesson for an hour. We can go for a little walk. We can do maybe it's after school that they'd prefer. Maybe they don't want to be seen in school with the staff members. So maybe it's out of school. We just take them and do activities. We do sort of evaluation with them on the first session, where we get to know the young person, what their needs are, what they'd like to get out of the sessions, and we can do up to 12 sessions. Sometimes it's a little bit more, it depends on the needs. Sometimes it's less. Maybe you'll do 5 sessions and they feel a lot better, and that's all you'll need to do. But I'm working with the young person at the moment who just wants to try a load of different activities, you know, just have a break from their busy life at home. So we just do different things every week.
What kind of things do you do?
So we've been for ice creams. We've been lucky with the good weather. So we've been for a walk. We've picked up an ice cream. We've gone and played on games consoles. We've gone to the golf range. We've done just wellbeing walks and just had a little chat. So we've done DJing. We've done all sorts of stuff. It's just to get this person out of the house and have a break from their care and responsibilities. And
you mentioned there are a lot of things that are seen as typically normal activities: going for a walk, getting an ice cream. And that just shows, isn't it, the impact of care and responsibilities on these young people, and actually how grateful that they are to be able to just get out the house, go for a walk, have an ice cream, play on a games console. How many children do we know that just do that anyway? That need to have that opportunity with yourself to be able to do that without having to worry. And I think that's the key here, isn't it? It's like a lot of our young carers, they don't want much. They just want a taste of normality, isn't it? That a lot of young people would ordinarily take for granted. And, you know, I've worked with young carers myself over the years, and I've never met a more humble and grateful group of young people who are extremely special. You know, they're you know, wonderful group of people to work with, and you know, I bet your job you know, is very well appreciated, isn't it? You know,
and mature. All the young people that we work with are just so mature for their age. Like a group, for example, when we've made food, they'll come and collect the plates and want to take them back, and we're like, this is your time to have a break. You don't need to do these kind of things. So they're definitely more grown up than the other people their age, I would say.
Absolutely.
But no, they are a lovely group. They are a special bunch of people, I gotta say. Oh,
thank you so much for coming in today to talk to us about as we say, this very special group of young people who are in very difficult circumstances, you know, and a lot of them traveling that journey alone without realizing you know, the massive impact it is having on their lives, because it's their normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, before you go, we always like to do some tonight top tips, and I was just wondering if you could share with what you would say are the top tips for our listeners.
I think the main thing really is not to be afraid to speak up to someone, even if you are confused about whether you are a young carer or not. We'd rather you contact us to ask those questions than sit there and suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And not know, you know, that you can have support. And even if they contact us and they're not a young carer, we can signpost them to different types of support, because if they are contacting us, a lot of the time they do need support.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, don't suffer in silence.
Yeah, the youth service as a whole will support young people with basically anything that they need support with, isn't it? If we can't help, we'll always signpost to somebody who can.
Yeah.
But I would say as well, just look out for yourselves, but look out for your friends and people that you don't know. You know, there could be young people sitting in a class with somebody for a whole day and not know what they're going home to. That's something I really try and emphasize when I'm doing the sessions in schools. It's just to be kind to everybody. You really don't know what somebody's going through. You know, your friend could be going home on their bus at 3 o'clock. You go home on yours. You don't really know what they're going home to. You know, school could be their break, their safe space, and their quiet space. So, you know, let's not make school difficult for them as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like we were saying earlier about the stigma, a lot of young carers won't talk about their care responsibilities because of that stigma, isn't, you know, and they, you know, but especially for our, you know, young adults and teenagers, they want to fit in with their group. So, you know, to be seen as a young carer is something that they don't necessarily want to share. So it's important that, you know, we all look out for potential young carers out there that could need that extra support, which is out there with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just because you're considered a young carer, it's not putting a label on you that makes you stand out to anybody else. You know, you're no different to anybody else at school. You know, everyone in schools, I couldn't walk into a classroom and say who is a young carer and who isn't. Everybody, you know, they don't look any different or sound any different. Everybody wears the same uniform. You know, they're just like everybody else. It's just that they have responsibilities at home that others don't.
Yeah. Thank you. So what would be your take-home message for our listeners?
That they're not alone. There are lots of people just like them. So like I was saying about the group, lots of young people will feel like they don't want to go because they're going to be the only one, or they're going to be that label, they're going to be that person who stands out. But that's really not the case. There's lots of people just like them at the group, and that's the purpose of the group, is to give young carers a break. Just be a young person, come to our group and have a break. There's no pressure to do anything. If you want to go and play football, if you want to do arts and crafts, if you want to do your homework, if you want to just sit there, listen to your music and charge your phone, absolutely fine. But yeah, the message for me would just be that they're not alone. You know, don't feel like you're on your own out there, because there's definitely lots of people just like you out there.
Yeah, and often it's not a place where children want to, you know, young carers want to sit and talk about their home experience. They want to come and just be normal, you know. So it's not somewhere that you just sit and talk about your life in that sense. It's about how you can kind of just, you know, take as you want, like, you know, play football, play games, whatever it means, and talk when you need it, isn't it? That's available.
We're there if they need to talk about anything, but we're not going to be questioning them on their care and responsibilities. And it's very rare that young people would talk to each other about their care and responsibilities. You know, everybody understands that they're all young carers and all situations are different. But it is just an opportunity for them to have a break, and we're there if they need to talk to us, of course. But
thank you. Before we go, I've got a question. If you could bust one myth about young carers, what would it be?
I would say that my biggest myth would be that young carers just do the dishes. They just do some washing, which is not the case. I think their care and responsibilities at home are a lot more than just doing the washing and doing the dishes, doing some household chores. You don't know what their care and responsibilities are, because they differ for everyone. It could be helping someone up and out of bed. It could be personal care, or helping cook and prepare food. Everyone is completely different. But I think something we hear a lot is, oh well, I do dishes as well. All they do is do the washing.
Yeah, and kind of linked to that as well is that when you say the word carer, you assume you're getting up in the morning, looking after somebody all day, putting them to bed, getting up the next day and doing it all again. But it's not necessarily the case. As you say, every caring role could be completely different. You know, we have some young carers who'll do loads of tasks all day, every day. We have some who may just do some tasks every now and again. And maybe there's a young person who lives at home with a parent who's gone to work, had an injury, they've had an operation on their knee, for example, for 6 months. If that person's not be able to get out of bed, then that's when that person steps in. So, you know, there could be completely different scenarios. But all three of those examples would be considered young carers.
And also from my experience of working with young carers, you know, a lot of the time doing those tasks like the washing and, you know, the cooking were not they weren't the hardest tasks. It was actually all the worry that happens when they're not at home caring. So I think that's the difference here is that, you know, maybe there's a lot of kids out there that do the dishes and put the bins out and things like that. But it's actually that worry when you're not there with them. And I think a lot of the young carers I worked with, going to school was actually probably one of the biggest worries for them because they couldn't keep an eye and couldn't check in. You know,
and they're out for so long. Without a lot of the time without any contact because phones are not allowed in school, so it is massive.
Exactly, and that kind of goes back to where the young carers champion steps in then. So that, you know, if a young person has communicated with the young carers champion or any staff member that they're a young carer and they need to contact home or they need, you know, it's just removing that barrier and removing that worry. And that if they know that at break time they can make that call or at lunchtime they can phone home again and check, then, you know, that kind of eases the stress a little bit.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Dan and Taylor, for coming in and talking about something that is very close to my heart, but also something that is so important for us to have. And your service, you know, the Young Carers Project for both young carers and young adult carers is something that is, you know, so valuable to, you know, a lot of children and young people out there in Neath Port Talbot. And hopefully after this Tonight Talk today that we'll get more people getting in contact with you.
Definitely.
That's what we want, isn't it? You know, for them to have the support that is available to them because it's out there. As you say, they're entitled to those carers assessments, you know, which can really help the family significantly. So thank you very much for joining us today. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to our Tonight Talk today on Young Carers. Don't forget to scan the QR code to access our live sessions that are coming up. And we look forward to speaking to you again. Take care. Bye bye.